our Thursday broadcast, Community and the Constitution. Happy Valentine's Day. My Skype is acting up already. They did an update today. Let's hope we can get through the evening. If it acts up a little bit too much and starts getting out of hand, I'm sure somebody will let me know. And what I'll do is I will hang up. We'll play a song. I'll hang up and call in on the regular phone line. So this way we don't have any issues with that. First let me say hello to Jessie. She's already here on the board, along with a couple of callers. Great. People, if you want to get on air, please hit the number 1 on your keypad, and that will let me know you want to join us. How you doing, Jess?
I'm okay. How are you?
All good, kiddo. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Well, with it being Valentine's Day, I figured the first thing I want to do is we got a couple of topics we're going to hit tonight, actually. But the first thing I want to do is we're going to read this short little history segment on Valentine's Day. I figure that's only appropriate, right? It says, The Legend of Saint Valentine. The history of Valentine's Day and the story of its patron saint is shrouded in mystery. We do know that February has long been celebrated as a month of romance, and that St. Valentine's Day, as we know it today, contains vestiges of both Christian and ancient Rome tradition. But who was St. Valentine, and how did he become associated with this ancient rite? The Catholic Church recognizes at least 3 different saints named Valentine, or Valentinus, all of whom were martyred. One legend contends that Valentine was a priest who served during the 3rd century in Rome, when Emperor Claudius II decided that single men made better soldiers than those with wives and families. He outlawed marriage for young men. Valentine realized the injustice of the decree, defied Claudius, and continued to perform marriages for young lovers in secret. When Valentine's actions were discovered, Claudius ordered that he be put to death. Now, other stories suggest that Valentine may have been killed for attempting to help Christians escape harsh Roman prisons, where they were often beaten and tortured. According to one legend, an imprisoned Valentine actually sent the first Valentine greeting himself after he fell in love with a young girl, possibly his jailer's daughter, who visited him during his confinement. Before his death, it is alleged that he wrote her a letter signed "From Your Valentine," an expression that is still in use today. Although the truth behind the Valentine is mercy, the stories all emphasize his appeal as a sympathetic, heroic, and most importantly, Roman figure. By the Middle Ages, perhaps thanks to this reputation, Valentine would become one of the most popular saints in England and France. The origins of Valentine's Day, a pagan festival in February. While some believe that Valentine's Day is celebrated in the middle of February to commemorate the anniversary of Valentine's death or burial, which probably occurred around AD 270. Others claim that the Christian Church may have decided to place St. Valentine's feast day in the middle of February in an effort to Christianize the pagan celebration of Lupercalia, celebrated at the Ides of February, or February 15th. Lupercalia, or Calia, was a fertility festival dedicated to Faunus, Faunus, the Roman god of agriculture, as well as the Roman founders Romulus and Remus. To begin the festival, members of the Luperci, an order of Roman priests, would gather at a sacred cave where the infants Romulus and Remus, the founders of Rome, were believed to have been cared for by a she-wolf, or lupa. The priests would sacrifice a goat for fertility and a dog for purification. They would then strip the goat's hide into strips, dip them into the sacrificial blood, and take to the streets, gently slapping both women and crop fields with the goat's hide. Far from being fearful, Roman women welcomed the touch of the hides because it was believed to make them more fertile year. Later in the day, according to legend, all the young women in the city would place their names in a big urn. The city's bachelors would each choose a name and become paired for the year with his chosen woman. These matches often ended in marriages. Valentine's Day, a day of romance. Lupercalia survived the initial rise of Christianity, but was outlawed later, as it was deemed unchristian at the end of the 5th century, when Pope Gelasius declared February 14th St. Valentine's Day. It was not until much later, however, that the day became definitively associated with love. During the Middle Ages, it was commonly believed in France and England that February 14th was the beginning of birds' mating season, which added to the idea that the middle of Valentine's Day should be a day for romance. Valentine greetings were popular as far back as the Middle Ages, though written valentines didn't begin to appear until after 1400. The oldest known valentine still in existence today was a poem written in 1415 by Charles, Duke of Orleans, to his wife while he was imprisoned in the Tower of London, following his capture at the Battle of Agincourt. Several years later, it is believed that King Henry V hired a writer named John Lydgate to compose a Valentine note to Catherine of Valois. Typical Valentine's Day greetings. In addition to the United States, Valentine's Day is celebrated in Canada, Mexico, the United Kingdom, France, and Australia. In Great Britain, Valentine's Day begins to be popularly celebrated around the 17th century. By the middle of the 18th, it was common for friends and lovers of social classes to exchange small tokens of affection or handwritten notes. And by the 1900s, printed cards began to replace written letters due to improvements in printing technology. Ready-made cards were an easy way for people to express their emotions in a time when direct expressions of one's feelings was discouraged. Cheaper postage rates also contributed to the increase in the popularity of sending Valentine's Day greetings. Americans probably began exchanging handmade valentines in the early 1700s. In the 1840s, Esther A. Howland began selling the first mass-produced valentines in America. Howland, known as the mother of the valentine, made elaborate creations with real lace, ribbons, and colorful pictures, known as scrap. Today, according to the Greeting Card Association, an estimate 1 billion Valentine's Day cards are sent each year, making Valentine's Day second largest card-sending holiday of the year. It's an estimate that 2.6 billion cards are sent for Christmas. Women purchase approximately 85% of all Valentines. Well, that's the history. Excuse me. Of why we're raked into this madness. As you can see, though, it was actually handwritten notes. It didn't start really getting commercialized until much later, and it's been a holiday in recognition now for very, very, very long time. But I just thought I'd share. Just like I usually do with the other holidays, I go through a little bit of a history and give us a background on it. With that being said, let me take a peek here at the board. Jose's online. How you doing, brother? You there?
Yeah, I'm here. How's everybody doing?
Doing good, doing good.
Awesome. Can you hear me?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Everything's fine.
Yeah, I just had to ask. Everything that was going on last night and everything that's been acting up today, I don't understand, I'm only running 3 little windows in Firefox. I'm running Skype. And I seem to be maxed out on memory, which does not make any sense. No, seriously, there's no reason for there to be a gig and a quarter worth of RAM being burned up by all this,
Yeah, there's a real simple fix for that.
Increase my RAM?
No. No, or not. You probably have a whole bunch of... Microsoft is great for this. because you end up with a whole bunch of programs when you're using Windows running in the background under
Oh,
your.
yeah.
Later on, I'll give you the simple walkthrough, but it's really easy. It takes about 2 minutes, and what you want to do is you go into your search under your start menu. This works for everybody, anybody. I do it on all my computers. You just type in MSCONFIG, short for config, MS config. You click on it, you open it up, and in the bottom box, you're going to see hide all Microsoft. You just hide that little box. That'll hide all the Microsoft stuff, and everything that's left there, simply check all and disable. And then go back through. It's usually your top couple ones. You'll have your virus scan will be listed as one of your top couple of ones there. Uncheck your virus scan, so of course that turns on, and then don't worry about it. Then hit save and exit. It's real simple to do, and that'll stop all those background programs from running. That frees up all your RAM, it'll make your computer run a lot faster, a lot smoother. When you're doing your applications and one of those items that may have been disabled and the computer needs it, it will automatically start up. Will automatically that particular application for you. So it's not like you got to go in and trace it. Oh man, where's the one that I need for this? It'll do it for you all by itself. It's real to do. Everybody, especially if you're running Windows, that's something I do on a regular basis. I'll go in about once every 2-3 months. Takes seconds, check the box, disable all, uncheck the one for my virus scan, go about my day.
Yeah, I just want to cut Windows down. I mean, seriously, this Vista program is just junk. It really is. I've been struggling to see if I can find a way to burn off of the internet a copy of XP so that I can reload this computer. This thing is fast. I've seen this thing blaze, but it had XP on it. Now I got Vista on it, and it's just slower, and it's a dual core. It's running 2 cores, and it's running another set of dual cores for the graphics.
Yep.
So there's no reason for it to be so slow.
You got to know how to go in and turn off like the window features and different things. You start turning that kind of stuff off, and you'd be surprised you'll get your speed right back. The internet's been acting up for everybody that I talk to. So if it's an internet issue, as far as speed goes, that's been going on for weeks. I'm not sure exactly what's happening with that. There's some rumors out there, of course, as they always been. And actually, it started before there was internet problems, supposedly that the government years ago has been holding back some sort of severe virus so it wouldn't get out to everybody. And not that it's actually going to get out to you, but it does, I guess, affect the servers, the main servers for the internet. And they had said, they gave us a year notice type of deal saying that it was going to be released. The hold on this was going to be released on a certain date. And obviously, I guess that date came about, and that's why, you're seeing all this now. But they are working and cleaning it up, and, I expect that to start coming back, not in too long of a time. But, supposedly, like I said, I have no facts on that, going by what I've heard, and I got that information, like I said, over a year ago. They gave us plenty of time, if you will, that this may occur. The heads up, if you will, that this may occur, and hit all the servers. It has nothing to do with your personal computer. It's strictly the servers. And without the servers, well, you don't have access to the internet. So it all ties in.
Well, no, see, my internet connection is really not a problem at all because I'm running at 0.5% on the internet itself, and I'm sending and receiving just fine. So I know the problem has to be in my computer, and I know it's Windows because everything slowed down when I loaded Vista on here, and then I started packing on all the other programs, So it's just me, being lazy, I suppose, and not.
But XP is definitely the most stable. I've used them all. I've had every operating system all the way back to the beginning of DOS. So I've been in computers a very long time. I even go back to the original BASIC. Of course, I can't remember a damn thing other than pike and poke with it. So I couldn't even tell you anything about that anymore. But I was there at one time, Matter of fact, we have a computer up north that still hooks up and runs. We still have programs for it on the old 5-inch disc. The original floppy disk, or like 5.
Oh yeah, the old green screen, orange screen ones.
case of them things with games and everything on it. So, yeah, I still have this stuff up and running and working and messing around with. We had that. My brother-in-law and all that keeps all that stuff up north. I just don't have the room for it, and I just ain't got time to mess with it. But it's neat. The nephews and all them, when they were little, they used to come over and we'd pop a game on that thing for them. Slide one of those big 5-inch discs, and to them, they're all amazed, like, wow, because they've never seen anything like that. They're today's computers,
Yeah.
So when they were kids, they were, this is the most awesome thing. Nobody I know has anything like this. So it was one of those, just something they can go back and tell their friends about.
Yeah. I remember all those.
Remember what you're talking about? You're talking about those big floppy things, right? The big floppy disks.
Big flashers. Yeah, today you got the little, 3 1/4 inch disc. Well, now today you have those. You don't even get those anymore. They're hard to even get a hold of. But I got cases of those too. But, I have all that stuff laying around. Like I said, I've been into computers forever. So anyhow,
I have a lot of those things left around. I just don't have anything to use them on. I feel so old.
Right. Well, actually,
come on.
The drives that you can buy that's not a tape drive that take the original floppy sizes, and they'll actually read your old disk drives. And from time to time, you can catch a special where somebody ended up having a bunch of them laying around in a back room, and you can find them at some computer places and computer shows, and you can actually still pick up a regular standard old 3 1/4 inch floppy drive to put in your computer. You're not going to get the big 5-inchers anymore; those are gone. But you get the standard ones. They're still out there. You can find them.
Yeah, you can, but you got to know where to look. Anyways, I was wondering, hey, how's everybody doing on this brand new distraction that we have out there in California with Mr. Donner and the LAPD shooting everybody up in LA and practically murdering people at their doorsteps and stuff like that, looking for Mr. Donner. Most of the victims.
A bunch of hokey pokey.
Well, most of the victims
that was doing that anyway. Wasn't one of the alphabet agencies involved in that? And then there was a quote this morning too about they got the dispatch, I guess, recording of actually saying we're going to burn him out, and then they were saying like, no, we didn't start the fire, he started his own fire or something like that. So it's all about fear porn. It's all about getting everybody to turn against one another, and quite frankly, I just don't want to get into that.
No. I just want to point out. I mean, the story is it's going right along the same lines as Aurora and Sandy Hook, and and they threw this little Waco twist into it, which I thought was kind of that's a sentimental little touch there with the burning of the building and the people inside the building. Turns out it was a woman, not a man. Because this Mr. Donner's wallet was found in 2 places. One wallet with one set of IDs found in 2 places, and how did it make it through that fire without getting burned? It's all sounding insane. It's really insane. So now that we're distracted with California, I'm looking at the East Coast to see what's going on over here, because that's where the real story is. We got to start looking at the rest of the country. Forget what's going on in California. That's just a whole bunch of distraction and noise.
Well, I never do. Yeah, I haven't watched, other than the about 10 minutes worth of morning news I get from my very comedic local DJ here, who brings me up to date on that in the 10-minute morning thing as I'm kicking the kids at a bus stop or whatever. Beyond that, I don't even pay attention to it. I mean, I don't watch the TV. I don't watch any of the news channels, none of that stuff. I'll pop through to see what the top stories are. Then I do my own research. I'm pretty much either on Sci-Fi or C-SPAN, keeping an eye on what they're doing. And, of course, that's all smoke and mirrors, dog and pony BS, too. Yeah, but at least, it gives me a little bit more. I'd rather hear it from them instead of it being rebroadcasted on the nightly news and all the other crap that goes on, So it's just a bunch of hoopla. So I'm not even going to bother. We're going to get away from that kind of stuff. It's good to keep an eye on. It's good to see what the others are doing out there. Absolutely, that's our job. We keep an eye, but we don't concern ourselves about it. We got more important eggs to fry, if you will. We need to get this education. We need to get our studies. We need to understand what's happening, and they're going to make it look like all these bad people when really it's only a handful of people. Whether it's law enforcement, whether one of the alphabet soups out there, it's all a bunch of lies. They're all being programmed, if you will, and it's just a matter of us not reacting. As long as we don't react, they're going to keep trying all these false flags and all these crazy events. Realize and recognize it for what it is, folks. It's nothing but BS. It's nothing but a way to make the general population react. They're going to react poorly against their officers in their areas, and they're going to act poorly towards each other. If you fall for this scam, don't fall for it. I did get some inquiries this week, and of course, every time I get inquiries or emails, I always like to cover those and go over them.
Well, before you do that, Doc,
I have to look up for Chris. I have not forget yet, but I do want to say hello and a shout out there to the chat rooms. And Chris and Kurt, of course, welcome. And over there in BTR, we have a guest, and Kurt is also over there joining us in the BTR chat room as well, and he's posting up all kinds of stuff for us. Great job, thank you. ATS. Used to be one of my favorite sites where I used to keep all my stuff organized to make everything nice and easy for everybody. Well, they've deleted another one of my threads. It seems to be becoming a more regular occurrence over there. All right, these are threads, folks, that have been up for, some of them have been up for 4 years. Okay, they've been up for a long, long time. And they're coming along and they're going through my stuff, or if one of my students, something goes over there and just like bumps the thread to say hello or give me a thumbs up or whatever it may be. Of course, now it's right up in their attention. So what do? They go through it, they delete it, send me been moved to the deleted for this reason, moved to the trash bin for that reason. It's just one excuse after another. ATS is trying to get rid of all my threads because they don't want the truth out there. But the question was, and the discussion was, and we have spoke a little bit about it and touched on it, now we're in the advanced courses. We did cover some of this a couple of years ago. We have mentioned it from time to time, but we've never really gone into any detail. So for tonight's topic, we're going to start getting into a little bit more of, and I posted the two links in question. Actually, one link, I'm sorry, the other one's to the Freedom Marines chat room over here in BTR. If you're joining us from there, you can click on that. It'll bring you to the other chat room as well. But the one paper we're going to go over is Rulers. It's real short. It has to deal with the Federalist Papers. And it's just a handful of select ones to show to those who still may be unsure where it all comes from and who the people are and what the rulers are. Real short. We're going to go through that real quick. And then I'm going to get into and start breaking down, because this is the thread that was also taken down from ATS, which was on the Martial Law General Order 100, which we've discussed in the past. The one they just took down the other day from me was Social Security examined, the SX examined. Now, because they took away my threads, and I didn't think they'd go into that, start playing that game, I have not had a chance to back a lot of my stuff up from there. So my notes are scattered, and I'm having to rebuild as we go along here, all my notes and everything else. I think I have them on my backup drive that's not connected. I only connect that when I'm doing my backups and store retreat information. So I will have to get those back out for next week. But with that being said, we're going to get into this rulers paperwork. It's real short. It has to deal with it's all taken from the Federalist Papers. Many people have heard about the Federalist Papers, but few have ever actually gotten it, read it, and looked through it. The same thing with Vattel's Law of Nations. Yeah, we speak about that often. But how many have actually gone and read all 4 books? The thing is huge. Okay, it's bigger than the TRA. Okay, it's big. So I don't expect, unless you're one of these diehards like I was and still am, to really read through the complete works of these authors that we speak about here. So I'd like to give you the highlights, if you will. So these are 2 papers that were the Federalist Papers, which is a series of articles, and it's outlining the ruling elitists and their plan to control the commerce of the American peoples under the document known as the Constitution for the United States. We all know about that. They were noted to be posted as a public notice in the Empire State. Well, whose empire is it? Note that we will refer to themselves as rulers. And we look up the word ruler, noun. One such as a monarch or dictator that rules or governs. That comes from the American Heritage Dictionary. You notice the we the people are not who you think we are, and we've covered that multiple times, and that is the popular leaders who in all ages have called themselves the people. And that comes from Blackstone's Commentaries 438 and Ballantyne's Law Dictionary. Now we're going to look over the federal papers, which came out prior to the Constitution, and what they used to form the Constitution to back up and solidify those statements. And the first thing we're going to look at is Federalist number 4, and this was written by John Jay. If, on the other hand, they find us either destitute of an infactual government, each state doing right or wrong as to its rulers may seem convenient, or split into 3 or 4 independent and probably discordant republics or confederacies, one inclining to Britain, another to France, and a third to Spain, and perhaps played off against each other by the 3. What a poor, pitiful figure will America make in their eyes. I jump down to number 15 here. This is from Alexander Hamilton. The rulers of the respective members, whether they have a constitutional right to do it or not, will undertake to judge of the property of the measures themselves. Starting to get the idea here. 28, another one. A lot of these come from Alexander Hamilton. Actually, let's go 26. Independent of parties and the national legislation itself, as often as the period of discussion arrive. The state legislators, who will always be not only vigilant, but suspicious and jealous guardians of the rights of the citizens against encroachments from the federal government, will constantly have their attention awake to the conduct of the national rulers, and will be ready enough. I'm not going to read through all this, just where they get to the rulers parts. Number 27, but through the advisories of the proposed Constitution should presume that the national rulers would be insensible to the motives of public good or to the obligations of duty. I would still ask them how the interest of ambition or the views of encroachment can be promoted by such conduct. And the list goes on and on and on. I posted the link there. You can read through the rest of them yourself. There's only about 10 or so listed to give you the ideas that they constantly repeating the rulers. And I will also drop that over here in the Freedom Range chat since some people weren't able to get to the other one. But it's packinlaw.org/sup/rulers.html.
Hey, Doc.
Yeah.
I was just now thinking, about all these pages that ATS is removing, that you might want to maybe go and download the whole page, all of your threads from ATS, okay? That way you can recover them.
Yeah, I actually sent them a note. I have almost. I started backing them up some time ago, so I have them. I just don't have them on this particular hard drive that I have active at the moment. I got them backed up somewhere, but I got thousands and thousands of notes and information, so it's kind of organized, if you will. And I did start downloading and taking care of some for what I could. So yeah. It's a little tricky, but I'm starting to recover it. It's also posted. Some of these older ones are posted on my blog, so they're even though that blog's a mess and hasn't been kept up in a long time. That's why I started using ATS.
Yeah,
it's still there, and it'll always be there. And both SS Examine is there, as well as I believe some parts on the martial law.
Well, as it turns out, the Internet Archive called Wayback Machine, they have a lot of your ATS stuff, or they have a lot of ATS stuff backed up on there. I don't know if they got yours. I'm sure you can go on there. I'm going to pass you the link.
Yeah, I got it. I got you sent it to me there in Skype. I got it. Definitely. Thank you. I will check that out and do a search for my name, because everything there is under DR Miola. So shouldn't be too hard.
Cool.
Folks, and I'll get that to you. But that's the bout on Rulers, just to help those who may have only joined us recently and just found the show. And we welcome you all, and we thank you all. Thursday night's more of our advanced courses, but we do like to hit up on some of the highlights just to help you along with your studies if you're new to the program. I see Pleased to Meet You has just popped into the chat room. Glad you can make it. He always tries to make it in for all our live shows when he's not working or otherwise entertained elsewhere. And we always appreciate him joining us. I did go do a little search on my hard drive on this one, just to see what Word documents I had laying around. And these are some of my show notes, and then we'll actually get into the General Order 100 itself. It's not the website I've always used in the past. However, it does have the same information, so it's still archived. It's full in entire. In other words, it's complete. It's not picked out like some of these other places. And eventually, I'll get the one I've always had and used in the past. But I'm going to read over a couple of my notes here to you guys to share with you before we get into that. I'm also going to, while I'm doing that, let me get this link here. I'm going to post this link in both chat rooms, and that's what we'll be discussing when we come back. There's one. Let me post the other. You guys, open up that. Cover my notes. We're going to come back after my notes. We're going to play a song. And then, of course, before we get into that, if anybody has any questions or comments, please raise your hand on the board, and we'll take it right after that song. Our call-in number, as always, is 714-868-0749. My notes are titled, What is Martial Law? Okay, time to clarify a lot of people misunderstanding martial law and when it has been declared, and if declared, when did it go away? So we'll try to help. Martial law came into effect with President Lincoln when he passed Proclamation 1, which if you look that up, that'll show you the military side. The proper code that we would be looking at is General Order 100. A lot of this information, if you go through the PAC-D programming and you go through those links there, you're going to discover a lot of that information pertaining there as well. At this time, now this is how I wrote it up. It's a long time ago, folks, so these notes may be a little bit off. But this is how I was explaining it years ago. At the time, the political structure flip-flopped, okay? And back then, this is how it looked. Now, this again, I'm going to remind you again, this is an old note. So I say it flip-flopped. At first came the people, which we know the people are the rulers, so we can scratch that. Then it was the Congress, which was the Congress of supposedly the people's voice. Then the Senate, who were the police or watchdogs of the Congress to make sure they did not pass laws that were unconstitutional. Well, that was perfect At least it kind of worked because the senators were all appointed. They didn't have to run for office. It was a set position. And their specific job was to do nothing but verify constitutional or unconstitutional. Well, then, of course, you see what you have today. They're voted. They changed the laws. Now the Senate is voted upon. And, now they're so worried about running for elections that they're also doing their own things. And it's no longer a simple vote of, yes, it's constitutional or not. They want to put their 2 cents in there. And it's become the whole fiasco that we have today. And then finally came the president. He had the ability, and his powers really only lied with, again, we've covered this before, foreign affairs. And he would sign and either pass or veto a bill. So show you what the president, he may veto that bill. He still doesn't have the full power. At that time, it can go back through the process. And if 85% of the votes say, we want it, guess what? It overrides the power of the president. So that should tell you how much power the president really has. Well, now I've explained that, where now it's the power of executive order. The president's the king, and then comes the Senate, then the Congress, and we vote in, and we're all slaves, and it's a whole bunch of craziness and badness, if you will. So it's just crazy. When I look at my notes, I also see back to the Proclamation 100s. This is the martial law, and made the president commander-in-chief. I've been corrected in that, though, in my studies. It turns out that George Washington was the first commander-in-chief. I thought commander-in-chief, the title, really came into play with Lincoln. However, I was mistaken in that. That's why I'm correcting my notes now. But we'll try to find more information if anybody has any questions on that. But to me, I always thought that came into effect because of the war. Well, George Washington oversaw the military powers, and when he became president, made him commander-in-chief. But we'll have to look into that. These are old notes, folks. Like I said, they took down my good stuff, so now I got to go all the way back and refresh everything again. States of government can mislead and misinform me. No, I'm actually looking at a Skype question as well here, folks, so bear with me. Basically, now we bring it into what we have today. All right. Martial law, also known as state of emergency. They're one and the same, but today we have always referred to it as a state of emergency. For those who may not realize, the Union has been operating under the declared state of emergency ever since the so-called Civil War, the war between the states. This was discovered not that long ago by Congress. And they said, wait, we cannot operate under the same emergency since it's been in effect for over 70 years. Now, the one in question that they were discussing was actually the Great Depression and that state of emergency. It never went away. It was never ended or stopped or anything. We were operating under that one order of emergency for 70 years. Somebody in Congress woke up and saw this one saying, hey, wait a minute. We can't do that. We can't, we got to come up with a better plan. So they passed new regulations stating that a declared state of emergency must be renewed every 2 years. Okay, sounds good on its face, right? So guess what happened? The president, whoever is the sitting elected president at the time, every 2 years is brought this piece of paper on the so-called declared state of emergency. And since that day, every single sitting president has signed to renew the state of emergency for 2 more years. Just a little history of background. Folks might not realize that at all.
Doc?
Jose?
Yeah, no, I just want to point out in Article 1, the most obvious thing in it that states that we've been under martial law for the longest time. Okay? Section 1, Article 1, martial law, military jurisdiction, etc., blah, blah, blah. Article 1 says, the presence of a hostile army proclaims its martial law. It doesn't say the presence of a foreign hostile army. Only a hostile army. There's a big difference. It doesn't have to be a foreign army. It can be your own military. But as long as it's hostile, well, there you go. That's martial law. Now, does the president have a thing called the United States Marine Corps?
Yep.
Which is his own, and no bullshit, it's considered to be his own personal army, the U.S. Marine Corps. Okay? That's one.
Not to cut you off, I believe today, it's since Obama especially, it's NORTHCOM. When they formed NORTHCOM division, that became the president's personal army. Although, yes, well, like the Marine Corps is now, like the Navy, the Army, the Guards, all that, they're all under presidential order as far as him being the commander-in-chief. But as far as the private army side, which used to be controlled, the Marines used to be controlled by the presidency.
Yeah. No, that's the part I'm talking about, not the private side.
And okay. That's no more. Now it's all in the hands of NORTHCOM. So that was actually taken away from our own Marines. Now I don't know how. Yeah, that's no more. That's what I'm saying. That doesn't happen anymore. That's all done. The so-called the real private army. And you hear Obama. We got recordings of Obama stating such. That he was going to form this private army. And that's where NORTHCOM came into it to play. And that's where I'm sure everybody's heard the name Petraeus, General David Petraeus.
Yeah, that POS.
Well, he's been involved in Iraq and moved over to Iran and been over here and all this and that. And all of a sudden he disappeared off the face of the earth. We don't know nothing anymore. Well,
for a little while anyway.
Yeah, he disappeared. The reason he disappeared is because now he's in charge of NORTHCOM, which is the private army, which now handles all the black ops, secret, all that craziness. So that's a little history there. Let me get through it. We only got another couple of paragraphs here. We operate under this illusion of declared state of emergency. And they do this with such things as war on drugs, war on terror, Katrina, 9/11, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. We have elections in the Union as a red herring. Okay, this is to keep the average person from realizing this very fact. But your vote does not count. And we all know that. These are old notes, folks. You guys are in the advanced classes. By now you know our votes don't count. Only the Electoral College. We also know that our votes, by voting, is a treasonous act. Okay, so we don't need to spend any time on that. We know all this. Declared state of emergency besides natural disasters and any and all wars fall under this. Most understand 9/11 since this has happened in our lifetime, but many might not realize the actions of the past that have kept us in this so-called declared state of emergency, such as Pearl Harbor, the sinking of the Mesopotamia, I think was the name of the ship. All these actions, all these false flags events were done on purpose. Now, I call them false flag events, and you can look it up. They're all classified as false flag events. This is what's gotten us into the wars. He's asking me specifically, today actually, he asked me something about Pearl Harbor, and I guess that must be something they're studying in history right now. So I says, yeah, so you know that it was all a well, at first I asked him what he said, well, that's what got us into World War II. I was like, well, yeah, but do you know anything about it? Said, well, not really. I guess they're just starting it, and of course they're not going to tell you the truth anyway. So I told them the true story behind what had happened there. Yes, we did not enter into that war, and there's tons and tons of proof that we had well in advance notification of the attack on Pearl Harbor. And I will give you just some of those highlights. Number one, when the president first told the admiral at the time, and you can look it up, it's on record, that to move all your ships into Pearl Harbor, the admiral turned around to the president and said, no, you don't put all your eggs in one basket, Mr. President. And he says, well, I'm telling you, and I'm your commander-in-chief, I'm ordering you to move the fleet into Pearl Harbor. The admiral looked at the president and said, sorry, Mr. President, I respectfully decline and will not move our fleet that I'm responsible for all in one location, known as Pearl Harbor. And there was a couple of aides and whatnot in the room as well at the time. He turned around and said, that's fine. You refuse? He goes, yes, Mr. President, I do. Says, good. You're fired. And he fired the admiral on the spot in his office. Then he went to the next highest ranking member in the room, who at the time was not that high of a rank, and said, you are now my highest ranking admiral. And the guy was like a lieutenant or something, nowhere near, had the qualifications for this position. And he said, under my orders, I'm telling you to move the fleet into Pearl Harbor. Do you understand me? This guy just nodded his head. Uh-huh. Because he didn't want to be fired. Besides that, he just got the biggest promotion of his entire life. All right. So what did he do? He moved them all into Pearl Harbor. He had plenty of notification this was taking place. And this is posted. You're not going to find this stuff in our history books. You're not going to find this information or hear this on our media. You got to go to, okay, well, who are we battling? Let's go listen to what their news reports are saying. The Oriental people, Japan, China, Korea, they're all very, the whole culture is based on an honor code. And till this day, they are crying in shame. Not because they lost the war, but because of the attack on Pearl Harbor. They gave the president all the notice in the world and told him we're coming here. They told him what day they were coming and at what time the attack was to take place. They have done this throughout history in every war and battle they have ever fought. This is nothing new. History verifies this. Of course, not our history, their history. Right? When they came in and attacked Pearl Harbor, they broke their honor code. They felt dishonored for the simple reason the code that they were upholding, their honor code that they referred to, it is a great breach of this code to attack an enemy while in his sleep. They flew into Pearl Harbor, totally with us, sound asleep, down in our bunkers, nobody knowing what was happening. In other words, they caught us completely off guard. It was all a setup. It was a false flag. The thinking of the Mesopotamia, I think that was the name of that ship, or Lusitania, or whatever that name of that ship was. I always mess up that name. Another false flag event that got us into a war. And, of course, everybody knows about 9/11. We kind of had a little bit of a calm there. We haven't been really involved in too much of anything. We're in theater all around the globe, but nothing really exciting had happened for a few years. We're kind of in that quiet period. And then what happens? Boom, 9/11. Oh, now we're on this war of terror. Let's go ship all our people over to Iraq. It's all about money, folks. All right? And I don't want to get into the whole 9/11 conspiracy and all this other crap. There's enough proof out there. And if you just look at the international courts and around the globe, they all say the same thing. It was taken down by demolition. It was not taken down by the planes crashing into it. Even the builder, the designer and engineer of those towers said you could have crashed 10 planes into that building. There ain't no way in hell it was ever going to come down. So, one plane in each building, there's something going on here. There's something else involved that created this. I know what was involved because I found a document. Don't know how I found this not that long after it occurred. I do my research. And I came across a document, and sadly I don't have it. So you'll have to take my word for it that I saw it, at least saw it, and I'm sure it's somewhere out there. And it turns out that there was a law passed many years ago, prior to 9/11. Many many years ago, and even before the construction of the 9/11 towers, the Twin Towers, that all buildings that exceeded X amount of floors, that within the building material itself had to contain within the concrete, the pour of the concrete itself, contain this particular explosive, which is this is exactly what was found at 9/11. That all this particle dust and all that was analyzed. It was this demolition type particles that were found everywhere.
It's called one of two things, either super thermite or microthermite.
Right. Thermite. It's on the thermite family.
Yeah.
And the law passed many, many, many years ago that any building that exceeded X amount of floors, this must be added. Now, of course, the builders don't know. Nobody really knows. They're not going to tell people, hey, yeah, your building is set to explode and collapse, because people will never go there to work in it. Right? But this is part of, like, the hidden building code, if you will. And that's why it was found everywhere. So it wasn't that planes at the building that took it down. It was simply that the thermo built within the material is set to a certain vibration level. And upon impact, that didn't quite work. That didn't quite set it off. However, with all the heat and the burning and all these little formulas, mathematical formulas added up, was enough to finally set off the controlled explosion that we all witnessed that looked like a controlled demolition as the towers came down. This also explains why, although no plane hit it or anything else, 7 came down. Okay?
But 7 wasn't on fire.
It came down. It came down because of the vibration factor from the other 2 coming down to the ground. The vibration factors and all, there's an underground tunnels that connect all of these buildings. The vibration factor triggered the thermo in that building, and that's what brought it down. Okay? So if you look up any of the world court's opinion on this, they're all going to tell you, and they're all in the same conclusion, this is why. Of course, we'll never hear that here or admit that here, and that kind of sidetracks us from where we were heading tonight. But that's okay. I just wanted to get that information out there. I'm not, like I said, not going down the conspiracy side of it. Sit here and, this happened, that happened. I don't care about all that shit, to be honest with you. You want to do that stuff, go knock yourself out on one of those threads that do that all day long and talk about these conspiracies. But, we're going to stick to the law. That's what we do here. And current events. Post the link for those of you over there in our chat to get over to the Freedom Range chat. There's some great conversations going on over there. So you can always flip-flop between the two if you're able to get to it. And they're talking about how it's the Earth is managed. Kurt brings this up, and you guys are making some really great points. I'm not being able to read all the comments, and they scroll by pretty fast. But for so many thousands of years, the dark takes over and they pillage and destroy and all that, and then we'll get some 2,000 years of peace, if you will, and the light and the love and all goodness and kindness will come forward. And that's pretty good. I like that analogy, if you will. And hopefully we're living in a time, if we can get by this madness that's taking place now. The dark is doing everything they can. I truly believe that we're in the final years, okay, for the New World Order to succeed. If they don't get it done within Obama's reign here, and if Obama doesn't finally declare himself openly king and become the last president, which I believe in one aspect or another is going to take place anyway, World War III doesn't end up breaking out, which again, I think is strong possibility. But without the fear porn, if we can change that course today, we'll be in good shape. If not, after this, not going to take long. I think it's going to be a brief period of time here when all this takes place. It's going to be shortly if it does. Of course, they will always use the fear porn and false flags to force us into these events or try to get us to get into these events. But I think their days are numbered. I truly think that if we can get through it, we will begin to see a much greater change. We can make that change now, before the fact, which would be a better option for everyone, except for the big bankers, of course, and the rulers. But definitely, I think after this last event, this World War III, the whatever you want to call it, the end of America, so on and so forth. I think once that takes place, for sure, that's going to be the end of the darkness, and we're going to see a time of course, whoever's remaining, because God only knows what they're going to do and who's going to be left. I think that's going to be a great time of peace, a time of great peace, I should say.
Well, Doc, I got a question.
Sure.
Okay, so now we already know that the financial system that they currently have set up in place is set up in a way where they can control it to make it worth more and worth less. As a matter of fact, they could crash the entire system tonight. We wouldn't notice until tomorrow when we hit the stores. Or maybe, probably not, for 2, maybe 3 days. Now, when this whole thing, I mean, if you look at it, it's a bubble. It's a huge financial bubble. And yeah, sooner or later, it's got to pop too. When that pops, what do you see as the repercussions from that?
Well, it depends on how it pops, really. See, what people are missing, in order to understand finances and money, I mean, unless you're in the stock market and understand and trading currencies, foreign, domestic currency, you're going to be a little bit of a loss. Since 1940, the Federal Reserve note, the Federal Reserve private money, has been classified as the world's currency. In other words, all the countries around the globe accept that for payment because it's the world currency. It's an acceptable, agreeable payment because it's accepted everywhere. Like Visa, hey, or American Express, we're accepted everywhere, whatever the case may be. Prior to 1940, we have to look at Europe. That was the British pound. And that was the currency of the world market at that time. Well, Europe was going through a change. And before they can convert their currency to the euro, which is what they ultimately ended up with, it took time. They had to wean off it. And before they could do anything, they had to be declassified from the title of world currency, because only one form of currency can hold that title at any given time. And we took it over in 1940. Since 1940 till today, we're still considered the world currency. A couple of years ago, both China and Russia, I believe, in their own agreements with each other, because all these countries trade with each other and they buy from each other, whether it's weapons or food or products or whatever the case may be. And when one country deals with another country, they always use the world currency. Well, a couple of years ago, China and Russia agreed that they would no longer use the United States currency, and for their own, through their own eyes, if you will, they were already declassifying it and saying, no, we're not going to recognize this as a world currency. But that's just two countries. It takes the whole world to agree on this world currency. China threw their hat in the ring at this time. And if you watch the market, you understand what's going on, and even in just catching the news from time to time, you'll see that economically, China has grown to be one of the most powerful on the globe. They finally did the right things with their currency. It took some encouragement. Okay, they didn't just do this on their own. They have always downplayed their currency because they didn't want to be put up there. Okay, they the last regime in charge always, want to always keep it lowball their economy, lowball their, true value of their currency, if you will, for trade. And that's how they built up this big empire. It kind of grew like there was no tomorrow. Their building, their infrastructures, their economy. It just literally took off through the roof over the last, say, 10 years. Now it's in a position, and they've thrown their hat in the ring a couple of years ago now, and they start reporting their currency correctly. And they're in position to take on the title of world currency. Once that happens, then, and only then, whether it's China or another country, but once the world title changes hands, only then can the United States at that time introduce, and it's not the first time this has happened, folks, introduce the new currency. Whether it be Amero or whatever they want to call it, or whatever name you want to put on it. But the new currency, which is already, a lot of it's already been printed and ready to go. It's all in storage. They're planning on this. They've been planning on this for a long time. This is the whole reason behind devaluing the American currency. In order to give up the title of world currency, this is what must take place. And it's proven through history. So it's very, if it's something you really want to look into deeper, it's there. So just go ahead and kind of backtrack those clues that I gave you, because I'm all going by memory. It's been a long time since I played around on the market and, messed around with any kind of the foreign currency and watching those markets. So unless you find somebody that's really into that, it's going to be kind of hard to follow it. But you can trace it all through history to see how, it went from Europe to us in 1940. From us, now we're devaluing everything because we need to change it. We need to get that title off our chest, if you will. We got to get rid of that title, and China's in place to take that to take that title. And it's not a bad thing, not a bad thing at all. Let them do it. That's fine. The world currency from time to time does need to be changed. Needs to trade hands. This is what keeps the global market on the whole operating. Right? It's not monopolized. In other words, we monopolized it from 1940. Europe had it so long before them. Somebody else probably had it before them. So on and so forth. It changes hands. We've changed our currencies here many times. So, yeah, that's what's going on with the currency, though, Jose. This is why you see the devaluation of it. It needs to come down. It needs to become an equal to what surrounds us. Well, what surrounds us is Canada and Mexico. That's the currencies that surround us on both ends right now. So we need to get you're going to see the dollar become more and more equal to those two currencies. And once that balance occurs, once that becomes an equal playing field for those three, then China will step in, take on the title, and then we can issue a new currency. Now, my danger in this is the thought of the European Union, not the European Union, I think the American Union or whatever it may be considered, but the three countries, us as the Union and our countries, with Canada and Mexico, all then finally falling under one umbrella, one currency. Yeah, that's where that word Amero comes from. And people have said the idea of the Amero is dead. No, it's not. They might put it different, but the theory behind it is the same. We're all going to have the same equal value of currency, just simply all going to be using, and all are going to be becoming one huge union or nation at that time, I believe. That's Canada, United States, and Mexico. And that is 1/3 of the flat map, I think they look at. And it's a 1/4. I can't remember if it's a third or a fourth. But they got the map broken down in these four sections or three sections, the New World Order, that is. And that's their goal, to get each section to work under one currency. Now we'll only have the entire planet working off of 3 or 4 different currencies. Then once that occurs, they can take the next step, and that is to equalize the currency between those 4 and turn the 4 into one global currency. See how that all works? But we're talking generations upon generations upon generations. for that all to take place. Don't think in a year, a month, a week, a couple of years. They think in generations.
Yeah. Yeah.
This is the ultimate end goal, if you will, for the whole globe to be united as one under one world currency, one world order, one so on and so forth. And that's where that all comes from.
And
getting a time, folks. This ain't nothing new. But yeah, don't worry and don't panic about the currency changing. The Federal Reserve needs to go bye-bye. Too many people are aware of all the problems there and the fraud that was pulled on us. So they're going to come in with something new. However, the only thing they're going to really do is change the name on the building. The same private owners are still going to own it, print it, and do everything as they always done. But it'll put the blinders back on American people, for another 4 or 5 generations. So don't sweat it. It's nothing new. We've been through it before. We've changed our currencies many times.
Okay, so as they're devaluing our currency, well, it's not even our currency, it's their currency, but we tend to use it because we don't know any better.
Correct.
As they tend to devalue the Federal Reserve note into what it's supposed to be, which is toilet paper,
yeah.
And they increase the value of I don't know that they're going to be able to increase the value of the peso because the Mexican peso is being held back.
Right.
A lot.
Yeah, that's not a problem. China did the exact same thing. This is all done by design, folks. This all works together. It's not that we need to increase their value at all. They're stalled. They can stay right there, never move. Canada could stay right where they're at and never move. The U.S. simply has to come down to their level. Don't need to raise them up at all. That's why it's stalled. And what you're saying, like the peso is on hold. China did the same thing for all these years. They held the yen at a certain price, never increasing or decreasing its value, which actually was a false number if it was actually be audited. Just like, it's the same thing. They held back their currency until such time when they were in position to put them where they are today, all right, to take over the new title. The same thing. The U.S. dollar will only fall so far. Once we hit that point, then you're going to see the peso all of a sudden, if it needs to, and only if it needs to, and the same with Canada, all of a sudden, that held value is going to be released, and it's like, oh, look at that. We're even with the U.S. See how it all works? It's a game. It's a game of weight and measures. And once all three are equal, either by us totally coming down to their level or them coming up just a little bit to meet us, it's all done by design. And that's why they're holding back the true value of the peso. China did the same thing. They did it for years. China did that for 20 years. They maintained that. And now the peso is doing the same thing. They're at that hold. So when you see that happening, that's when you know we're getting closer and closer. Because they're on hold. They're staying there. We're devaluing. We're coming down closer and closer to their level. And same thing with Canada. Canada's staying right there. They're not moving. They're holding right there on that scale. Very little fluctuation anywhere. So once we get to the dollar as far as it's going to go, if the other two need to be reins need to be loosened up a little bit to come up to be equal, then that's when you'll see the unity of all three nations, or whatever you want to call it. Whatever you want to call them. But all three will become one at that point.
Well, I've never actually looked at Canada. I don't know what they are. I do know Mexico is a federation, just like the United States is a federation. So I would have to say Canada is probably still under the English kingdom.
Yes, they are. Canada
in which case, I'm sure the Crown would just love to say, well, we have Canada. We had the colonies before. We'll just take the colonies again, and we'll take Mexico with it since, that's probably pretty much how it's going to work out. And then we got a king and a queen yet again.
Flat map.
And I don't know how the Mexicans are going to take that. I got an idea that the Americans here in the continental U.S. are not going to like that at all.
Well,
I mean, if
you ain't gonna worry about immigration anymore. Mexicans, Mexico people
well,
ain't
we're not.
here looking for work because we're all one big happy family now, and there's going to be no more borders. You can forget about the borders; they'll disappear. It'll just be one big giant landmass with the the American Union. That's it. There you go. As far as Canada goes, because I know right now they're still tied to the crown. So are we, but they are a little bit more so. If you take the flat map, now what I mean by a flat map, folks, if you haven't heard that expression before, if you ever seen a globe, in a classroom, the big round ball, a little bit bigger than a basketball, that's a globe. Well, if you take that and you cut it in fours and laid it flat, and that's how most printed maps are. If you ever looked at a map of the world, you'll see the map is actually divided into four sections, four equal parts, or three, whatever it is. But I think it's four equal parts. Each one of those parts consider a section, and that's their goal. So if Europe falls into that section, that quarter, along with Mexico, Canada, and of course us, the United States, then they will be part of this whole big American thing. If their continent on the flat map falls into a different section, which I think it does, and they're purposely doing that, that falls into the European Union. We're going to be the American Union. They're going to be the European Union. At that time, when that takes place, Canada then will officially be given up by the Crown, temporarily, to become all in one with the American Union. Okay, so right now, if they're controlled by Great Britain and the European Union, that's going to change because it'll go by the flat map breakdown of the New World Order. That's how they use this stuff. And what they'll do is the Crown will voluntarily give that up. No problem. You're part of the American Union. Because they know at one time, once we get all four sections in place, it's all going to be one global warm, world anyway. The reason for the wars over in the Middle East and the war with China and all them and Russia, because that far side, when you lay the flat map out, that particular union that they're trying to do is not getting along. So we need to, in order to encourage that to become the ultimate goal of what the New World Order wants, they need to democratize the whole thing. And that's why we're pushing democracy all over the globe. This is the reason for it. Because once it becomes democratized, even though it's maybe still be broken down into its little pieces like we are, it's much more easy to sit there in time. Remember, they do this by generations and over time to make that one union. So now we'll have four separate unions around the globe, and that'll be it. Nothing else will matter. And they'll take the four with whatever current world currency is at that time, because you're going to see all four of them very quickly once that takes place. All four currencies within those four divisions will equalize almost overnight. Boom, we're all equal. Why are we making different currencies? Let's stick it all into one world currency, one friggin', we all print the same shit. We ain't got to worry about nothing anymore. And everything's traded, cleanly across the board. And they can sell it real easy, believe it or not, because especially here in the Union, because we're a bunch of idiots. We're not idiots. We're just ignorant of what's really taking place. And they tell us what they're going to do. And they do it each and every time. We just don't listen. But, yeah, that's the ultimate goal. We're not going to see any of that in our lifetime. I doubt our kids are going to see that because it's not far enough along. To help push it along is going to take World War III. So if World War III happens, that is the reason for it. Once World War III occurs, then there's going to be the big push for all these unions to start forming. The American Union, being Canada, Mexico, and ourselves, be it the European Union, which is, all of Europe and the other countries, that surround that. You're going to see all this start taking place. Like I doubt we may see the war in our lifetime. World War III may happen in our lifetime, but we're not going to see the forming of these unions. That'll be for somebody else's history books, and they'll have to do their research and go back and say, hey, look, man, they told us about that back there in the 1800s. They told us they were going to do that in the 1800s. Well, now it's the year 2200 and something, Wow, look, they did it. And that's also your whole Star Trek thing and everything else. The Federation. It's just they call it the Federation of Planets. Well, that signifies right there that because all of planet Earth is under one global federation. People may not have picked up on that little tidbit there throughout that whole series. But that's what
Well,
Roddenberry was getting at, that the whole entire planet is one federation.
well, Doc, I mean, if you take a look at just the U.S. part of it, and you see just how, um, I hate to use the word militant, but everybody in the continental U.S. that I'm seeing is ain't nobody giving up their guns. Nobody's going to give up their guns. So I'm seeing the American Revolution, or not the American Revolution, part two to the Civil War, let's say, coming up. Now, it's been confirmed, and there's plenty of pictures and documentation and proof that there were, probably still are, Russian Spetsnaz, which is pretty much like the Army, or like the Navy SEALs, right? The Russian Spetsnaz are here in the U.S., and there's a lot of them, not just a few.
It's actually that's been taking place here in the United States. We have been training foreign agents, not agents, but military individuals. Just like when we go to Iraq and Iran and we train their police forces or in their military and so on and so forth. That's been taking place here in the States, so God forever. Even when we were in service back in our day. Russia has always had trainees here. That's nothing new. People think it's in the hundreds and hundreds and hundreds. No, they come over in one particular, one small company at a time, on the average of about 20 to 25 soldiers. That's it. But they bring their own equipment here. We have all their equipment here because we use their equipment to train them. So when they go back home, they know how to use their equipment, and their equipment stays behind for the next company that comes over to be trained. But that's like we have a student exchange program, considered a military exchange program, and we've done that with all of them. We've done it with Russia, China. We do it with all the, the whole globe for the most part. You'll see all kinds of different. Especially if you're out there in the wilderness with some of these far off bases and all, you'll see trainloads of equipment and gear coming in, and that's updated tanks. They're designed by the Russians, and they bring them up here, and we actually train because we have better trainees. I guess I don't know why they can't train their own people, but for some reason it's just the way it's been done, and it's been done that way for 100 years, so it's nothing new. But yeah, there are at any given time. Here within the Union, there are at least 3 to 4 different outside military presence or forces, if you will, in some form of training that is here. Well, if war was to break out, which I think is what you're leading to, are they going to fight on our side or their homeland? Of course they're going to fight on their homeland. And their equipment is already here to utilize against us.
Right.
So I get where you're going with that. The danger of doing this, because all their equipment's here, their people are here. We're training them. When they decide to push that button or throw that flag up, well, hell, they're going to jump in their own tanks from their own government that's already here and utilize it against us. So I get that point, what you're doing. But I think there's also in order for all this to take place, believe it or not, I would have to look into. I haven't done treaty stuff in years, and we're actually going to get into some of that, guys. A little heads up. Probably the end of this month, we're going to start getting into deeper and deeper because we talk about it all the time. The 15th statute at large, and we're going to get into all that entails, along with the treaties and whatnot, because it's something we haven't done in a long, long time. So we're going to start getting deeper into those topics. So you got a lot of exciting things coming up. So we don't have to keep repeating all this crazy stuff over and over again. We're going to start moving ahead here and move ahead quickly. Because we don't know what's going to happen.
Well, one of the things that I'm seeing, Doc, is that there's a lot of people. I mean, a lot of people. Most that have actually had to deal with the TSA in the airports now at bus stations and at train stations, and well, I should say more recently at bus stations and train stations, and then now TSA and Homeland Security are doing this thing with Tennessee, and I believe they're spreading into a couple other states. Now, this I see, and most military people that I know see it as a blatant, totally blatant preliminary to a full-blown attack by Homeland Security and the TSA. And then people are looking at both of these agencies, and they've got billions, not like hundreds of millions. You know, they ordered billions and paid for billions of rounds, and a huge chunk of those rounds are hollow point, which is not within the guidelines of the Geneva Convention, and they're not supposed to be used by any government agency at all, except for maybe like SWAT. They're probably, exempt from using hollow point rounds because of the amount of damage that they do. They don't just go in and go out of you. They go in, and when they mushroom really big, and they create a humongous cavity within the human body, which causes massive amounts of trauma. And I mean, usually when a person gets shot with like a 45 hollow point, there's no saving them, just period. It's better to just let them lay there for the next 10 minutes and suffer it out, or whatever they do, But they're doing this, and they're doing it at checkpoints. They're doing random checkpoints. Now, yes, all government agencies, they broadcast. They tell people, well, we're going to be doing our checkpoint at a certain spot on a certain day at a certain hour. We're going to start. It's going to go all day or whatever. And people could avoid those checkpoints if they just did a little bit of reading in their newspapers, or searched, or stop and ask a cop. Tell them, hey, where's the nearest checkpoint? So that I don't have to go through it or whatever. They'll tell you, and they're not shy about it.
In Florida, we post them.
Well,
we post. I don't know if that's because it's a rule or regulation that they have to do that for some reason. But Florida Highway Patrol will often take out a thing in the paper, usually like a couple of weeks or even a month in advance, and they'll tell you exactly the procedures that they're going to follow, what roadways will be, will have these things at it, and they'll tell you specifically what they're checking for. So it's very well outlined. They publish it to us all the time. Whenever they're going to do this kind of stuff. And they usually set up one of these type events, like every other year down here. They'll post something like that where they'll do it, and it's not a big deal. And so you can easily avoid it because, like I said, they tell you exactly what they're looking for, what they're doing, and where they're going to be. It is published, so not a problem. And I think a lot of other places do the same thing.
Yeah. But now they're in the news. They're doing training. How is it that they put it? They're doing training for mass casualties at these checkpoints. So you're going to see a lot of if you happen to run into one of these checkpoints, you're going to see a lot of what are they, M14s and M16s and who knows what all. Heck, you're going to see a lot of weaponry. There's going to be a lot of metal there. Don't freak out.
Yeah, it's not a big deal.
They're just training right now. But you're going to have, and you will see, you're going to have somebody, going through one of these checkpoints, and they're going to be like, nah. And it's probably going to be one of those crazy people that thinks they're sovereign, you know, and we're going to have another one of those incidents like we had, what was that, in 2005, where the father and son ended up killing 2 or 3 officers there in Tennessee, and the police chief, it was the police chief's son that got killed. It was one of the officers that got killed. So that police chief made it his life's work to bring down all these sovereigns.
And it's a good thing. I have no problem with that.
Well,
no problem with that at all.
The thing of it is, Doc,
and lock them up because they're destroying this movement. I sit there and I train the officer friends that I have acquaintances with and all that. I train them all the time. And the exact paper we just covered yesterday for the beginner classes there on patriot misbeliefs. When you see any of these things, and I can tell you right now, there's probably at least 100 officers throughout the Union that I personally have dealt with that I know for a fact have printed out that paper and carry it in their patrol card.
Which paper?
Memorizes it. So when they come across these people, they can say really, and they can actually explain to them exactly why they're wrong, why they're going to jail when do not pass go, and why they're taking their car.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Because, yeah, we don't play this shit. You know, I'm sorry, guys. I teach you the right way. There's only one lawful path, expatriation. You don't like it, then get the F out of the movement. But I ain't playing games. And I teach my officers, how to, you know, my friends and whatnot out there. This is how it's done. Yeah. Don't let them, you know, do this shit. Because the quicker we can shut this garbage down that's being circulating out there by agent provocateurs or by whoever, that much faster and quicker we're going to be able to take back, you know, the republics. But, you know, so, hey, go for it. Take them out as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, yeah. No, you know, then you got your militias. No, I'm not saying, you know, I'm not against the militias at all. If our country is by China because we owe them money, or the Federal Reserve owes them money, or if we get invaded by Russia because of some strange deal that Obama has been so secretive about with Putin, well, you know, that's a different story. At that point, hey, if you're ex-military, I'll be standing next to you at some point, you know. And yeah, that's when we all got to tighten our belts, pull our socks up, and do what we got to do.
Yeah, you're gonna see all the officers standing on our side too, guys. So that's what I'm saying. Yeah,
Yeah.
You guys go in peace with these guys because these guys are going to be actually on your side. Same thing with militias and all that. But we're going to cover that more another day. Let's get back to the topic here. I want to take another break here. Jesse requested a song. I'm going to talk a little bit about this, and then we're going to finish out our show. And we're going to do a couple of highlights because we're almost out of time. Time flies. We're going to do a couple of highlights on this General Order 100. And then, as always, guys, this is your show. If you got more questions about it, if you need more links to further your understanding, please call in or join us in chat. Put that question in there, and we can cover it in much more detail. This is one of, I guess, Jesse's favorites. It's definitely one of mine. This song actually saved my life back in my college days. I was going through a very, very rough patch in my life. And, you know, being an older person, trying to go through college, I was struggling all over the place. I had just have just been informed, and why I was in college to begin with, because I got hurt so bad it was a career-ending disability for me, and I was driving a truck. Well, of course, I came back from that one back to driving, but that took many, many years to do that. The company, because it happened on the job, they basically trained me for anything I wanted to do. I went back to rehab and re-education. So I went to college. That's where I studied the medical stuff. You guys have heard about that in the past. But I was really struggling and going through a hard time. And I'd gone into the lunchroom We had a large cafeteria there on campus, and I'd gone into the lunchroom. And I don't even know what I got for lunch, to be honest with you. Probably a salad or something. And there's always somebody, in the lunchroom area, uh, either selling something, giving out books, or a performer or some sort there on campus, be it from an outside source or one of our own people on campus, from the music side of stuff. And I was sitting there moving my salad around, not really eating. And there was this young gentleman, about the same age as me at the time, and he was up there, and he had a guitar in his hand. He was singing. There was all these people all gathered around down in front of him, and he was, talking and telling. I wasn't really paying much attention at first, but he was telling these stories and then would sing a song. Well, I started to pay attention. At one verse, I enjoyed what I was hearing, although I wasn't hearing the words. I wasn't, I was sitting way, way in the back. I started to move. I moved up. There was an open spot, open table close by, so I moved on up there. And he told this story about how the animals teach us a lot if we're just willing to learn. And he told the story about the buffalo and how in the storms they would break off into smaller herds and little tribes, little herds, and they would actually turn and face into the blizzard, into the storm that was coming, and they would walk, head on and face this storm till they either got to some trees or covering or a cave, whatever the case may be. Usually out there in the plains, you ain't going to come across too many caves, but they gather in these small little individual herds and they march. Because the quickest way to get from point A to point B is a straight line. The quickest way that we can get through any storm in our life, any uprising, is to face it head on. And we can take that lesson from the buffalo. And he told this story, and he sang this song. And afterwards, I went over and spoke to his father when he was still with us at that time, one of the great chiefs, and I knew I was in the presence of a very holy man from the tribe, and I enjoyed immensely that time I spent together with him and having this conversation. And on the spot, I bought everything that Jack had to offer with his CDs, and I left. Yeah, I looked over at Jack. He looked at me because he saw I was talking to his dad, and being very respectful, I bowed down much lower than him and looked up to him, in a respectful manner, being a native, part native myself. And we had this great conversation, and I got my CDs, and I looked over at the stage, and Jack looked over at me, and he was in the middle of another song. I don't know what song he was singing at that moment. And I nodded to him, in praise of much thanks. Because he didn't realize at the time that he had actually saved my life, my physical life that day. And he nodded back to me and gave me the eyes and just the expression on his face while I was singing, performing that. He understood. He for some reason, we made that connection. And from that day on, that was 20 some years ago, this day took place. Till that day on, we've become great and deep spiritual friends, and email when I can, and give them updates on the family and vice versa. We don't have that much time left in tonight's show. Boy, time flies. We're down to the last 9 minutes. You guys have that link, and we'll go into that more next week for sure. And we'll start tapping into some of that martial law stuff. The basics of it all simply is to understand that once martial law is declared, like it was done through General Order 100, there is two things that can occur, very specifically lined out clearly. There is no mistaking it. And you can find that as soon as you open up that page right there on Article 2, where it says, martial law does not cease during hostile occupation except by special proclamation ordered by the Commander-in-Chief or by special mention in the Treaty of Peace concluding the war. When the occupation of a place or territory continues beyond the conclusion of peace as one of the conditions of the same. Tells you quite clearly, folks. Special proclamation, and we talked about this with Texas the other day, right, where they have two, or outlined in special mention within the Treaty of Peace. Well, do a search for the Treaty of Peace. Doesn't exist. Never been done.
Doc.
Yeah.
Okay. So you're going to get this answer, which is the answer that I was given. So, I mean, I just referred the guy to Article 2, you know. I said, you know, I'm not getting into this argument. But he said, oh, but that war is over with, and the United States won that war. Yeah, that I was like, wow. You don't understand words very well, do you?
No, the second I turned around, the second somebody would ever say that to me, and those using those terms, I would have to do everything I could not to crack up and laugh in their face. I would say thank you. I would shake their hand and have to walk away, because a person like that truly has zero understanding of anything that's taking place. Oh, man. Amazing. Yeah, the U.S. won that war.
Yeah, now
that's funny. That is funny.
Now you see the stuff that I deal with every day. That is the level of intelligence that I deal with every day. You know, I mean, I actually posted Article 2 to them, you know, and I said, we have to have it either by special proclamation, as it says in Article 2, or according to a treaty of peace that ends the war, or, you know, we have to have some sort of set conclusion to it. Currently, as it stands, all we have is Grant and Lee agreeing to pretty much everybody being on probation. You know, everybody that's been a soldier, is a soldier, or born here is on probation. Born or naturalized, you're on probation. I'm sorry. That's just the way that says.
And that's outlined in the, surrender papers there. And Fort, I can never pronounce that name. It wasn't...
Appomattox.
I can never pronounce that damn word, that town. But that's where Lee and Grant got together, and it's all of like 2 paragraphs long, folks. That's the whole surrender paper is 2 paragraphs, and in there it clearly states that you're all on probation. But then you go to the next step, because usually my common one is, well, how come how can we still be under that? Because we have we have our local governments and all this stuff. Well, then you just need to look as far as Article number 3, and that clearly shows the commander of the forces may proclaim that the administration of all civil and penal law shall continue either wholly or in part as in times of peace, unless otherwise ordered by the military authority. There you go. And that's why everything looks normal, is because they allow it to appear as such.
Right. And who do you think is the military authority?
The president.
The commander-in-chief, yeah.
Exactly, and that's why I clearly say the commander of the forces. That's the commander-in-chief.
Right.
So it tells you what's going on, folks. I mean, we don't have to, there's, I think, 157 articles to this thing.
Yeah, no kidding.
You don't have to go through all of them. You can just pick out like 7 or 8 of them, like I did with my posting that was taken down, and skip down, and, I think it was number 22. Let's see, nevertheless, civilization has advanced during the last century, so has likewise steadily advanced, especially in war on land. Distinction between the private individual belonging to a hostile country and the hostile country itself, with its men in arms. That would be like the militia. The principle has been more and more acknowledged that the unarmed citizen is to be spared in person, property, and honor, as much as the exigencies of war will admit. So private citizens are no longer murdered, enslaved, or carried off to distant parts, and the inoffensive individual is as little disturbed in his private relations as the commander of the hostile troops can afford to grant in the overruling demands of a vigorous war. But it just goes on and on and on. And right there, I want to go, in case you didn't catch that, the principle has been more and more acknowledged that the unarmed citizen, folks, citizen, is to be spared in person and property and honor. Why do you think all these false flags are happening? Because they want you to be armed. It just adds more fuel to the fire, since we know that 80-90% of our population is armed and no longer unarmed. They no longer have to spare in us in person. In other words, they can kill us, property, which they already have, and honor. It's in there, folks. You just got to look it up. This is why everybody, what I was telling you the other day, everybody thinks, hey, it's a great thing. Everybody's running out and, it's backfiring on them. No, it's not. You're doing exactly what they want you to do. The more guns that are out there in the populace, the more they can claim, hey, look, the populace is no longer unarmed. And it's all clearly written out. If you bother to take the time to read it and understand it, more so than just read it, what's really laid out in General Order 100. Thank you so much, Mr. Lincoln. They killed the guy that just didn't kill him soon enough. Well, the reason he was killed, we only got 90 seconds left here, folks. The reason, in my opinion, he was killed is because he was actually about to sign and officially declare the end of martial law. He was going to put an end to General Order 100. And he had a committee or chamber meeting about this. And because that took place, and they realized that the bankers and all them realized, hey, wait a minute, he's getting ready to basically give everybody back their freedom type of deal by ending martial law, officially ending martial law, and before that could happen and take place, that's why they killed him. Yep. And that's just my personal opinion, of course. We're down to 30 seconds, folks. Real quick, final words, anybody? Jesse?
Same as always. Have a good night, everybody. Thank you for joining, and we love you.
Good night. I'll see you whenever.
There you go. God bless everyone. Thank you for joining us for our live show tonight. Do not forget, please, tomorrow night, 7 o'clock, same time. God bless. Till then, peace out.
Bye.
And continued to perform marriages for young lovers in secret. When Valentine's actions were discovered, Claudius ordered that he be put to death. Now, other stories suggest that Valentine may have been killed for attempting to help Christians escape harsh Roman prisons, where they were often beaten and tortured. According to one legend, an imprisoned Valentine actually sent the first Valentine greeting himself after he fell in love with a young girl, possibly his jailer's daughter, who visited him during his confinement. Before his death, it is alleged that he wrote her a letter signed "From your Valentine," an expression that is still in use today. Although the truth behind the Valentine is mercy, the stories all emphasize his appeal as a sympathetic, heroic, and most importantly, Roman figure. By the Middle Ages, perhaps thanks to this reputation, Valentine would become one of the most popular saints in England and France. The origins of Valentine's Day, a pagan festival in February. While some believe that Valentine's Day is celebrated in the middle of February to commemorate the anniversary of Valentine's death or burial, which probably occurred around AD 270. Others claim that the Christian church may have decided to place St. Valentine's feast day in the middle of February in an effort to Christianize the pagan celebration of Lupercalia, celebrated excuse me, at the Ides of February, or February 15th. Lupercalia, or Calia, was a fertility festival dedicated to Faunus, Faunus, the Roman god of agriculture, as well as the Roman founders Romulus and Remus. To begin the festival, members of the Luperci, an order of Roman priests, would gather at a sacred cave where the infants Romulus and Remus, the founders of Rome, were believed to have been cared for by a she-wolf, or lupa. The priests would sacrifice a goat for fertility and a dog for purification. They would then strip the goat's hide into strips, dip them into the sacrificial blood, and take to the streets, gently slapping both women and crop fields with the goat's hide. Far from being fearful, Roman women welcomed the touch of the hides because it was believed to make them more fertile year. Later in the day, according to legend, all the young women in the city would place their names in a big urn. The city's bachelors would each choose a name and become paired for the year with his chosen woman. These matches often ended in marriages. Valentine's Day, a day of romance. Lupercalia survived the initial rise of Christianity, but was outlawed later, as it was deemed unchristian at the end of the 5th century, when Pope Gelasius declared February 14th St. Valentine's Day. It was not until much later, however, that the day became definitively associated with love. During the Middle Ages, it was commonly believed in France and England that February 14th was the beginning of birds' mating season, which added to the idea that the middle of Valentine's Day should be a day for romance. Valentine greetings were popular as far back as the Middle Ages, though written valentines didn't begin to appear until after 1400. The oldest known valentine still in existence today was a poem written in 1415 by Charles, Duke of Orleans, to his wife while he was imprisoned in the Tower of London, following his capture at the Battle of Agincourt. Several years later, it is believed that King Henry V hired a writer named John Lydgate to compose a Valentine note to Catherine of Valois. Typical Valentine's Day greetings. In addition to the United States, Valentine's Day is celebrated in Canada, Mexico, the United Kingdom, France, and Australia. In Great Britain, Valentine's Day begins to be popularly celebrated around the 17th century. By the middle of the 18th, it was common for friends and lovers of social classes to exchange small tokens of affection or handwritten notes. And by the 1900s, printed cards began to replace written letters due to improvements in printing technology. Ready-made cards were an easy way for people to express their emotions in a time when direct expressions of one's feelings was discouraged. Cheaper postage rates also contributed to the increase in the popularity of sending Valentine's Day greetings. Americans probably began exchanging handmade valentines in the early 1700s. In the 1840s, Esther A. Howland began selling the first mass-produced valentines in America. Howland, known as the mother of the valentine, made elaborate creations with real lace, ribbons, and colorful pictures, known as scrap. Today, according to the Greeting Card Association, an estimate 1 billion Valentine's Day cards are sent each year, making Valentine's Day second largest card-sending holiday of the year. It's an estimate that 2.6 billion cards are sent for Christmas. Women purchase approximately 85% of all Valentines. Well, that's the history excuse me, of why we're raked into this madness. As you can see, though, it was actually handwritten notes. It didn't start really getting commercialized until much later, and it's been a holiday in recognition now for very, very, very long time. but I just thought I'd share. Just like I usually do with the other holidays, I go through it a little bit of the history and give us a background on it. With that being said, let me take a peek here at the board. Yep, Jose's online. How you doing, brother? You there?
Yeah, I'm here. How's everybody doing?
Doing good, doing good.
Awesome. Can you hear me?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Everything's fine.
Yeah, I just had to ask. You know, I mean, everything that was going on last night and everything that's been acting up today, I don't understand. You know, I'm only running 3 little windows in Firefox. I'm running Skype, and I seem to be maxed out on memory, which does not make any sense. No, seriously, there's no reason for there to be a gig and a quarter worth of RAM being burned up by all this, you know?
Yeah, there's a real simple fix for that.
Increase my RAM?
No. No, or not. You probably have a whole bunch of... Microsoft is great for this, because you end up with a whole bunch of programs when you're using Windows running in the background. Under your later on, I'll give you the simple walkthrough, but it's really easy. It takes about 2 minutes, and what you want to do is you go into your search under your start menu. This works for everybody, anybody. I do it on all my computers. You just type in MSCONFIG, short. Welcome all to our Thursday broadcast, Community and the Constitution. Happy Valentine's Day. My Skype is acting up already. They did an update today. Let's hope we can get through the evening. If it acts up a little bit too much and starts getting out of hand, I'm sure somebody will let me know. And what I'll do is I will hang up. We'll play a song. I'll hang up and call in on the regular phone line. So this way we don't have any issues with that. First let me say hello to Jessie. She's already here on the board, along with a couple of callers. Great. People, if you want to get on air, please hit the number 1 on your keypad, and that will let me know you want to join us. How you doing, Jess?
I'm okay. How are you?
All good, kiddo. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Well, with it being Valentine's Day, I figured the first thing I want to do is we got a couple of topics we're going to hit tonight, actually. But the first thing I want to do is we're going to read this short little history segment on Valentine's Day. Figure that's only appropriate, right? It says, The Legend of St. Valentine. The history of Valentine's Day and the story of its patron saint is shrouded in mystery. We do know that February has long been celebrated as a month of romance, and that St. Valentine's Day, as we know it today, contains vestiges of both Christian and ancient Rome tradition. But who was St. Valentine, and how did he become associated with this ancient rite? The Catholic Church recognizes at least 3 different saints named Valentine, or Valentinus, all of whom were martyred. One legend contends that Valentine was a priest who served during the 3rd century in Rome, when Emperor Claudius II decided that single men made better soldiers than those with wives and families. He outlawed marriage for young men. Valentine realized the injustice of the decree, defied Claudius, and for config, MS-config, you click on it, you open it up, and in the bottom box you're going to see hide all Microsoft. You know, you just hide that little box, and that'll hide all the Microsoft stuff, and everything that's left there, simply check all and disable. And then go back through. It's usually your top couple ones. You'll have your virus scan will be listed as one of your top couple of ones there. Uncheck your virus scan, so of course that turns on, and then don't worry about it. Then hit save and exit. It's real simple to do, and that'll stop all those background programs from running. That frees up all your RAM, all your it'll make your computer run a lot faster, a lot smoother. When you're doing your applications and one of those items that may have been disabled and the computer needs it, it will automatically start will automatically that particular application for you. So it's not like you got to go in and trace it. Oh man, where's the one that I need for this? It'll do it for you all by itself. It's real to do. Everybody, especially if you're running Windows, that's something I do on a regular basis. I'll go in about once every 2-3 months. Takes a second, check the box, disable all, uncheck the one for my virus scan, go about my day.
Yeah, I just want to cut Windows down. I mean, seriously, this Vista program is just junk. It really is. I've been struggling to see if I can find a way to burn off of the internet a copy of XP so that I can reload this computer. This thing is fast. I've seen this thing blaze, but it had XP on it. Now I got Vista on it, and it's just slower, and it's a dual core. It's running 2 cores, and it's running another set of dual cores for the graphics.
Yep.
So there's no reason for it to be so slow.
You got to know how to go in and turn off like the window features and different things. You start turning that kind of stuff off, and you'd be surprised you'll get your speed right back. The internet's been acting up for everybody that I talk to. So if it's an internet issue, as far as speed goes, that's been going on for weeks. I'm not sure exactly what's happening with that. There's some rumors out there, of course, as they always been. And actually, it started before there was internet problems, supposedly that the government years ago has been holding back some sort of severe virus so it wouldn't get out to everybody. And not that it's actually going to get out to you, but it does, I guess,